Welcome back, everyone. If you're the kind of person who just loves making sense of complex systems and really appreciates a clear, logical breakdown of information, well, you are absolutely in the right place. Today's explainer is going to be incredibly satisfying. We're decoding a hand-drawn foundational biological map of eukaryotic cell parts. Now, instead of just rattling off a laundry list of biology terms, we're going to look at exactly how these parts are structurally organized. By the end of this, you'll have a crystal clear mental model of a cell's actual architecture.
Okay, let's dive right into this structural journey. We'll be covering 1. The cell's master blueprint, 2. The outer boundaries, 3. The nucleus, 4. Inside the cytoplasm, and 5. The membrane hierarchy.
So, starting with part 1, the cell's master blueprint, mapping the eukaryotic cell.
You know, when we think of a cell, it is so easy to just picture this chaotic, microscopic soup. But actually, scratch that. In reality, it possesses a beautifully organized architecture, and this brilliantly illustrates the overarching concept of eukaryotic cell parts, breaking it down into a literal structural roadmap. It's a perfect visual representation of biological order. It immediately tells us that to really understand the cell, we have to look at its primary divisions. As you can see, the eukaryotic cell splits immediately into 3 distinct top-level branches. Think of them as the 3 primary pillars. On the far left, we've got the cell envelope, right there in the middle, the cytoplasm, and on the right, the nucleus. This right here sets up our entire framework. Literally, everything else we explore is going to fall under one of these main pillars.
Let's move on to Section 2, the outer boundaries, focusing on the cell envelope. Shifting our focus to the very edge of our structural domain, the chart divides the cell envelope into 2 distinct components, the cell wall and the cell membrane. What's absolutely crucial to grasp here from a structural standpoint is that the envelope isn't just one simple boundary. Depending on the specific cell type, this outer layer actually acts as a multi-part security system. You've got the wall for rigid structure and the membrane handling the flexible boundary control. Pretty cool, right? Moving inward, we hit Section 3, the nucleus, the standalone core. Now, unlike the other branches that splinter off into all these complex subcategories, the master plan places the nucleus on the far right as a singular, unified entity. So the crucial point is that structurally, it stands proudly as the standalone core of the cell. No extra branching needed.
All right, diving back into the middle for Section 4, inside the cytoplasm, the complex middle.
Entering the complex middle of the cell actually begs a really important question. How exactly is the cytoplasm organized? I mean, with so many different parts floating around, how does biological structure prevent it from just being a tangled mess?
Well, the answer is honestly quite elegant. The chart doesn't just list the cytoplasm's internal parts at random. Instead, it meticulously categorizes them by their, let's call it, membrane armor. It groups these internal structures based entirely on whether they possess a protective membrane, and if they do, exactly how many layers that membrane has. It's a whole hierarchy based purely on cellular packaging.
Which brings us to Section 5, the membrane hierarchy, packaging the organelles.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Starting on the left side of the cytoplasm branch, we find the absolute simplest structural category, membrane lacking. According to our flowchart, this category contains only ribosomes. They operate entirely out in the open, essentially floating totally naked in the cytoplasm without any protective layer whatsoever.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the middle branch, which represents the single membrane category. This is a dense hub. It houses the bulk of the named parts on our map. You've got the Endoplasmic Reticulum, the Golgi Apparatus, Lysosomes, and Vacuoles. And despite their totally different roles in the cell, the chart reveals a shared structural commonality. They are all packaged within exactly one single layer of membrane armor.
Finally, we conclude the cytoplasm structural hierarchy with the far right branch, the double membrane category. This is, without a doubt, the most heavily armored structural group on our chart. There are specific parts of the cell that demand a double layer of protection, and our map zeroes in on 2 of them, mitochondria and plastids.
Synthesizing our whole journey back to the full flow chart, just look at how beautifully this logic comes together. We started with a super broad concept, split it right into functional pillars, explored the outer boundaries and the core, and then completely decoded the complex middle just by tracking membrane packaging. Reading this map logically gives us a truly complete architectural understanding of the cell. It's like a giant puzzle coming perfectly together.
Which leaves us with one final, fascinating thought.
If a cell's internal parts are so strictly organized by their exact number of membranes, 0, 1, or 2, what does that specific armor actually dictate about an organelle's ultimate function? Nature for sure doesn't build complex double-layered structures by accident. This diagram brilliantly maps out the what and the where, leaving us perfectly primed to ask why. So keep questioning, keep visualizing, and keep learning.